Alright, so moving on, the last animated movie of 2018 so far that has a concrete release date is an untitled animated Spider-Man movie that Sony Pictures Animation is doing. This is going to be produced by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, and it's going to be directed by, I believe, not the director of The Little Prince, that's Mark Osborne. I think his name is Bob Perschetti. He worked on The Little Prince. I think he was like one of the supervising animators on it. He's gonna direct the film. And apparently, I mean, since Lord and Miller are involved, I'm gonna guess that this is gonna be an irreverent take on Spider-Man. And that's a pretty cool idea, actually, because, you know, I would love, you know, it would be cool to see an animated movie based on a mainline Marvel superhero, a mainstream one. We have Big Hero 6 already, and I'm talking about theatrical films. I'm not talking about all the direct-to-video animated Marvel movies. I'm talking about theatrical Marvel animated movies. So, yeah, we've got Big Hero 6, which is such a loose adaptation of the original Marvel comic, Big Hero 6. So Spider-Man, you know, is kind of a first. This is like the first mainline, big mainstream Marvel superhero to get an all-animated movie. And this is really exciting. And, you know, again, with Lord and Miller having I think they're going to write it too, not just produce it. I think they're going to write it as well. You know it's going to be fun. You know that it's not going to be any serious story about Spider-Man. It's probably going to be a parody of, you know, superheroes and how superheroes are being, you know, and how superheroes are like dominating the box office, and we kind of need that right now. I think Megamind, you know, DreamWorks Megamind could have been just that, a great satire of the superhero movie, but I think it kind of fell flat. So, no offense to anyone who loves Megamind. I know a lot of people love Megamind. Again, like I say in other rambles, it's cool that you like it. Maybe I'll rewatch it down the line, but the last time I saw it, it did nothing for me. So yeah, maybe this could be a great irreverent send-up of the superhero genre, you know, not the superhero genre, but the superhero movie. It can poke fun at the MCU, it can poke fun at how Sony, under Amy Pascal and Avi Arad and all them, how they botch Spider-Man. They can make like a crack at too many villains. I would just be satisfied if the whole movie was a send-up of how they screwed up the Amazing Spider-Man movies. That would be fun. But I think they're going to go beyond that, of course. I just hope that they somehow jab that halfway through the movie somewhere, and they're like, oh, are there too many villains? Have like the Sinister Six come out of nowhere, and one of the characters just says, wait a minute, where did they all come from? Nobody established them. It's like, who cares? Because Sony would have done that had Marvel, you know, not taken the Spider-Man rights from them. Because if you remember, Sony was, you know, after the Amazing Spider-Man 2 had come out, Sony kind of backed away and they considered releasing the Sinister Six movie first and then doing the Amazing Spider-Man 3. But then they kind of said, no, now we want to do Sinister Six, then we want to do Black Cat, and then we want to do a movie about all the female Spider-Man characters in their own movie. We're going to call it Glass Ceiling. And they just had all these impractical, improbable ideas, you know, to do, you know, for their Amazing Spider-Man franchise, and then it ended up just going belly up, and then Marvel and Disney were around the corner like, hey, give it back. So hopefully, you know, this new one makes fun of that, and makes fun of many other things too, all the while being, you know, something new for a superhero movie, and an animated movie too. So right now, Untitled Animated Spider-Man is set to be released on December 21st of 2018, rounding out the year. I'm going to talk about some projects that are most likely opening in 2018 or are aiming for 2018 but don't have any concrete release dates. There's RealFX's Wish Police, which has been in development for a long while. RealFX is the studio that did The Book of Life, and they have a very exciting slate ahead of them. And this project, I think, is a good reason why. It's from the people who did the Spanish animated movie Nocturna. It's about a world where if you make a bad wish, whether intentionally or unintentionally, there's these sort of ghostly forces that go out and make sure that these bad wishes happen. Like if you were to say, I wish that building would blow up, they would try to make it happen. And then the Wish Police have to go after these, you know, bad guys and stop them from making those bad wishes come true. It's a very cool premise, and it's definitely moving forward. There's concept art, they have the crew and everything, and they're thinking about a late 2017 or maybe early 2018 release, likely early 2018. It sounds awesome, and it sounds like it could be pretty dark too. The main plot of the movie is this boy wishes that his sister would disappear from his life, and he makes that wish while blowing out his birthday candle, while holding a 4-leaf clover, and apparently there was a full moon and everything just lined up, and the evil bad guy, the bad guys try to make that wish happen, and the wish police embark on a journey to stop them. It's a cool premise, and it plays off that anxiety when you make a malevolent wish and you don't really mean it, but you make it because of your anxiety. And it's like, finally, an animated movie that's going to tap into anxiety, and it's just that's just such a cool concept. And because Real FX is such an off-kilter studio, who knows, it might be an animated movie that's more for adults. It might be, more in the PG-13 territory, because one of the projects that Real FX optioned a little while back was Beasts of Burden, and that's not a very kid-friendly comic. I've heard it's more PG-13 than anything, and they wanted Shane Acker, the director of 9, which was a PG-13 animated movie, to direct the movie. Or either that or write it. I don't remember. I know he was involved in some way or another. It was either him or Andrew Adamson, the director of Shrek and Narnia. I don't remember I should know these things, but I remember they were involved at one point, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be doing that now. But Wish Police is very, very cool sounding, and I hope that gets made. I wish that gets made. Make that wish happen. I wish that Wish Police will be made, and will come out soon. Next up is a movie called Arctic Justice Thunder Squad, and admittedly this looks like one of those sort of Escape from Planet Earth kind of toss-offs, but if done well, it could be a good goofy like comedy. When I look at, concept art for these kinds of movies, I kind of get a 90s vibe from them, and I remember the shows I watched when I was, the more not so well-known shows in the 90s, and the sort of video games in the 90s. I kind of think of, we look, people were born in the early 90s, like myself, we kind of look back on those things with rose-tinted glasses, but we back away from some of them, and we kind of realize that they're not well written, or they're more for kids, they're very childish. I get that kind of vibe when I see things like Arctic Thunder and Escape from Planet Earth and movies like those. But if done right, and this is being done by a studio called AMBI Group, and I think one of the writers, Kel Brunker, I think his name is, I think he's going to be writing this movie, and that doesn't give me much hope because he did Escape from Planet Earth, and I think he also did Ratchet and Clank, and I heard that turned out to be not very good. But then again, it's probably not his fault. It probably has more to do with producers and executives ordering the movie to be a certain way. But this Arctic Justice Thunder Squad, it could be fun. It could be just another toss-off. I can't say too much, but the concept art's kind of cool. I mean, that walrus villain, he's like on that tank-like roller. I mean, that's kind of a funny image. And, there's a giddiness. And I wish that movies like those would take advantage of how silly they are, instead of just pelting bored adults in the audience with toilet humor. It's like, why don't you take advantage of how kooky that premise is and make it just this wacky, fun, smart movie? Oh well. Maybe I'm over-speculating, but it looks like it could be fun. I don't know what they're going to actually do with it, but who knows? Another undated 2018 release is Sergeant Stubby, an American hero, and they want to release this in the spring of 2018 in order to commemorate the 100th anniversary, the centennial of the ending of World War I, and it's going to be about a real subject. Sergeant Stubby, from what I understand, was a dog, one of the military dogs, and he was like a mutt, and he was in the trenches, and he took down a German soldier and held him there until the American soldiers showed up. There are all these stories about him, and this studio, I think they're called Fun Academy House or something, they're the one kind of funding it, and Micros Image is going to do the animation. They want it out by April 2018. There's concept art, I think there's a render or something. I wrote about this recently, and if they do this right, it could be very interesting. I mean, most animated war movies are adults-only type things, like Waltz with Bashir and, movies like that. Very rarely do you see, and they said they want to make it family-friendly. Very rarely do you see a family-friendly war movie that's actually decent. Outside of a few decent ones, and, something like Walt Disney's Victory Through Air Power. One in recent memory, one that comes to mind, one that's more recent, I think, is Valiant, and that was about the homing pigeons during World War II, and unfortunately, I think they kind of squandered that one, and while it was, I guess, kind of accurate that the pigeons did get the messages, and, they were able to get the things back home, I think the movie kind of tripped itself up by trying to be too much like Shrek, and it had all these like toilet jokes in it, and one of the producers of Shrek worked on it, if I remember correctly. And the trailers were touting that, like, it's from the producers of Shrek. That was at the time when Disney was in the danger of losing Pixar, so Michael Eisner and all the board of directors and all of them, they kind of enacted this plan to acquire animated movies being made by foreign studios. You know, The Wild was being made by a Canadian studio called Core, and Valiant, which was being made by this UK company called Vanguard, and they were going to release those movies alongside their CGI films from Walt Disney Animation Studios if they were to lose Pixar. And then once they got Pixar back into the fold, you know, The Wild and Valiant, they kind of disowned them. Although, oddly enough, in some countries, The Wild... Okay, well, going on a tangent here, but basically, yeah, Valiant. That was a animated war, sort of war movie for family audiences, and it tripped itself up. All I remember about that movie was Tim Curry playing a Nazi Falcon and a few other things. Yeah, let's hope it's less that and more, you know, of a good movie. You know, the reports I've heard about it, it says it's a sensitive script, it's going to, you know, address war to a young audience, and it's gonna, I mean, World War I. This is World War I we're talking here, and if we're gonna go into the trenches, this is gonna be a pretty hard PG. I mean, again, you're trying to make it a family movie. You know, that's a tall order. I hope that isn't code for it's a fun romp that has slight hints of war. I mean, I hope they kind of get into the nitty-gritty of this Sergeant Stubby story, and hope, you know, I hope they get to the trenches, and, you know, they don't have to show blood or anything or any extreme violence, but just show, you know, imply it, strongly imply it. And that way it's a good PG-rated war movie, and also have a good script. But it's one of the more interesting entries that's slated for 2018, especially among the ones. If it does, I mean, it probably is, because, again, that's the centennial, early 2018. I think it's going to make it, because I think it's, you know, Micros is a pretty good company. They're pretty efficient. So, yeah, hopefully it arrives by the time they want it out. It seems like an interesting story, and, yeah, it's interesting. You know, animation, a family animated movie about World War I. This could go either way.